encompasses cafeteria. The one thing it does not encompass is the school security. School security is funded through the town on account 61. So that is not included within the non-certified salaries here. So the annual contract increase, again, they are all other than the computer, the IT help, they're all union 3-year contracts as well. So it's 2.0% increase contractually a year. We're looking for a computer technician. They're responsible for all security equipment, including the maintenance of over 300 cameras. What we did is we currently at the high school have a private vendor it's Johnson Controls that provides us the service of all of our cameras in the high school. Because it's proprietary, they're the only ones that can service them. The cameras that we've added to the other schools are not proprietary. They will be serviced by us. The system was created by us. It should be much more cost effective, but we do need someone to oversee that. 2 special education paraprofessionals. Linda Holing, our director, asked for 11. We cut that back to 2 initially here. Increased the budget for substitute teachers. In order to have teachers when teachers are out sick, we need to provide substitute staff, and the budget has run over the last 2 years, so we have to increase the number there. 5, kindergarten paraprofessionals. Knowing that K years are very pivotal, it's something that's been in the budget request for the last 2 years. I'd like to take the 5 kindergarten paraprofessionals out of the choice grant and put them back into the operational budget. So we also requested 5 paraprofessionals. So with that 2% contractual increase, as well as those positions, we end up with the 641,977. Next line, employee benefits. I apologize, the purple is a little difficult to see. In employee benefits, there's a new wellness incentive for our certified staff. If staff receive the appropriate medical tests that are required by age, then they receive a wellness incentive. We needed funding for that. Includes benefits for proposed positions. Those new staff that I've showed you in non-certified and certified, their benefits are included in this, and there's a 10% increase. This rate is set by the town. The town looks at the rate and says, based on your coverage, we're recommending that you increase the budget, increase by 10%. That being the case, we're looking at 306,767. What I have here is actually a caption from the budget. If you picked up a packet, you'll find that in the packet it's much more descriptive than what I'm going over with you. You'll see that the colors that I have on the screen coordinate with that, and you can get it more descriptive. When it was small enough to put the caption up, I did, but you'll find that page within your budget, and you'll see exactly how it's broken down with the pension, retirement incentive, and when I get to the end, if there are any comments or questions, please, I'll be glad to answer anything I can. Okay, contracted services. The contracted service line it encompasses more than just what you think of contracted services. It also encompasses, well, I'll get into it more, but it encompasses more than just simply a contract like you're signing. It encompasses various softwares. It encompasses various things that we sign up for annually, and that's where you get the contracted service point, not just it's a contract with a contractor or individual. You can see the increase there. As I said earlier, this is where we took some of the funds out initially for that $500,000. I spoke to you about effective school solutions. We do currently have in the budget an additional $100,000 for McGee to have one individual to start the program at McGee. It's really to increase the support for students. Professional educational services, we had a reduction there. That's a reduction from the PPS department. And then software and licensing. And that's, again, like I said, when you think of contracted services, but there's many different softwares that we need to maintain the district. You know, one being a student management system. Without a student management system, we could not keep track of students, their grades, parent contact, and so on. Some of the ones, InfoSnap, which a lot of you receive, School Messenger, all of those are contractual services that we need just to maintain the district. Evaluation plans, and so on. You can see them listed in the full budget. Utilities. Utilities are very self-explanatory. Little breakdown here: heating gas, repair and maintenance, telephone, cooking gas, water and sewer. We're looking at 5.73% increase. Transportation. Transportation, we're at a 3% annual with New Britain Transportation. We negotiate that contract every 3 years also. And the negotiated rate is a 3% annual increase. So you'll say, why is it $127,848? We also have to, the deal we have with New Britain Transportation is we own all of our vans, but New Britain Transportation repairs our vans. So we have to pay the maintenance costs for the repairs. And we've looked at several different studies about whether it'd be cheaper to have someone own them and just lease and just pay for the service. And right now, New Britain Transportation believes that that's the cheapest route to go. But with that being the case, our fleet is aging. We're replacing vans as needed. So there's some additional funds in there for repairs and maintenance. Individual student van transportation. If a student requires transportation to a specialized school, not talking about special education, if a student is expelled from school or a homeless student, we are required to provide transportation. Oftentimes that's a van to take one student to another school or community. That cost needs to be absorbed into the transportation. So that's where the increase comes of 3%. Tuition. Magnet school tuition is going up 4% this year. Additional outplacements. If we have a student that requires an outplacement, the least amount for an outplacement is usually $65,000 for that student. That does not include transportation. Oftentimes within the budget, we do not have additional funds budgeted for outplacements. So if a student moves to Berlin and is already outplaced, we are required to provide that placement for the student. If we need to outplace a student, we must find the funds to do that. So those are all lumped under tuition. And then private and public schools annual rate increases. You might say, well, why does it say public in-state and there's a reduction there? Because as students that we currently have at a public in-state school, we know next year that someone's aging out, so we wouldn't have that amount. But the actual rate increase is already built in, saying if another student went in, it goes up somewhere between usually 3 to 5% a year. But you can see what we're paying. Magnet school tuition, private in-state. The magnet school numbers, have remained stable, if not gone down, and so have the VOAG. Supplies, textbooks, and materials. This is the account that I spoke of earlier. We've really worked to reduce that. And the reductions often come at the building level as well as at the district. We're looking at a reduction of $50,915 in the supplies account. You can see some of the items here, and where it is from instructional supplies is where the large number was taken, $234,623, leaving us with a reduction. Equipment. The equipment budget has the largest increase. But there's a story behind the equipment. The equipment budget that we've had in the past was also tied to the town. And what happened is the town has restructured how capital and equipment is budgeted. Previously, we would go and the monies that were tied to the equipment budget were budgeted at the town level. We would request. It would be outside of the operational budget. The new budget policy is it has to be $25,000 or more to be on the town side for capital equipment. That being the case, anything below the $25,000 is now pushed into the operational budget. So when we're looking at these cuts here, we made cuts to the equipment because typically the money came from the town. Not to say that it was often what was requested, but that's where some of the money came from. So the cuts that we're making today have to do with equipment in the hopes that there might be some end-of-the-year money left that we could then purchase the equipment with. So, town implemented new budget. I just spoke to you about that, $25,000, including the operation budget. Majority of the increase is allocated for instructional items and technology infrastructure: Chromebooks, smartboards, projectors, iPads for primary grades. Every classroom has a smartboard and a projector in it. Some of them are over 10 years old, so the projectors are becoming obsolete. Even you can't even replace the bulbs. iPads age out. We're a one-to-one school district, and what that means is that at the high school level and at the McGee level and at the elementary, we have enough devices so that's one-to-one for every student. At the high school level, the students actually take the Chromebooks home. At McGee, they're provided in the class. We believe that we did have the policy of, starting in 6th grade, purchasing a Chromebook for every student. Our hope is that we can maintain the Chromebooks and maybe get a little more life because they're not taking them home. At the high school, in 6th and 9th grade, we do provide every student with a Chromebook, and the hope is that the Chromebook will last through 12th grade. It's their Chromebook. So those monies are tied into the equipment budget, and in order to keep that program going, we need those funds. So, just a snapshot of the equipment budget. You can see where some of the reductions came, some coming from athletics, furniture. I want to draw your attention to the second column up top, Hubbard. Hubbard started off with $12,461 for equipment. They now have, in this proposed budget that I'm proposing this evening, they have $2,000. Willard, $9,000, they have $2,000. Each of the schools will only have $2,000 for equipment, including special education. And last is all other expenditures. $28,471. The lease on the Transition Academy. Transition Academy is in the YMCA building downtown. There's an increase there. The other is dues and fees. Some of the organizations that we belong to were paid for our end of the year funds. We're looking at paying them from the budget. Those are various organizations for the school district as well as organizations for the Board of Education. And that's why you see the increase here. Tournament fees we actually reduced. So, I just ran you through the whole budget, but I want to explain this stacked bar graph, because to me, this is a much better look at looking at the budget. So if you look at contractual obligations, that 2.36%, those contractual obligations include benefits and the contractual obligations for all of the bargaining units to just go on to the next year. So if we don't get a budget of at least 2.36%, we will have to reduce staff, because we have to have 2.36% just to maintain our current staff. The line that's drawn through the orange block, the 1.74%, that's the 5-year average of budget increases. So as I take the 5 years of what we received for increases, we're at 1.74%. That amount would still not be enough. It'd be half a percentage point, a little more, from reaching our contractual obligations. So a budget below 2.36 means either a change in how we deliver services, class sizes, programming, courses, or it means reduction in staff, or both. The contracted services, as I stated earlier, those are the items that we need to operate. Those are, the things we can't do without. You can't not have a student management system. You can't not have an evaluation system. You can't have not have a system to manage the special education services. Those various items we need to have. Those are all nested in the contracted services. Transportation utilities, we have a contract with MBT. We know what it takes to run the buses. We know what the utilities are. We actually need those funds too. And the tuitions, we're required to pay those tuitions for students that are outplaced, regardless of whether we choose to or not. We have to. So there's really not a place where you can just opt out of any of that. So you're really looking at 3.41%, and then it gets into the other expenditures. Maybe you can make some more cuts there. The increase in textbooks and materials and equipment, I lumped all those together. As I said, we haven't had an equipment line. We counted end-of-year funds. Maybe there's something that can be reduced there. And then it gets to those new requests that tie back to positions that were cut in previous years, or positions we need to move the district forward at 1.7%. But I think this gives a picture of if we're on the lower half receiving a 1.0, you can see where it is within the bar and where are you going to cut. And so it becomes a question of what kind of educational system do we want and what are we willing to pay. And what I'd like to show you in the second half of my presentation is what other districts are paying a little bit about the mill rate compared to other towns, a little bit about our history of how education was funded to give you a better picture. So let me move forward here. So over the last, I think I have 8 years, 9 years here, that's the upper number, around 4%, is where the requests have come in. That's the superintendent's request. And then the red is where our operational budget has been set, which usually ends up in May or June by the time that's set. And you can see for a number of years, we were hovering around 3%. And then we had 1.41, 1.5, 1.09, 1.58, 1.3. And last year, we had our greatest budget increase since 2013. So right now, after this evening, the budget will be at 5.36, and it will be turned over to the Board of Education at that point. Berlin's adopted budgets are not keeping pace. I picked surrounding towns. Some are what we classify as different DERGs, but I think they're towns we're all familiar with. And you can see what the 5-year averages are on the far right. Yes, we made some growth last year with the 3.21, but we're still the lowest on the group as far as what our percentage increase is year to year. And I showed you back to the bar graph where the 1.74 is in comparison. So are enough funds being allocated to education? So I have the mill rate and the average 5-year mill rate, the increase or decrease over 5 years. And the point of this is the mill rate here increase is, a hundredth of a percentage point below Newington, which is being the highest. And I didn't take into account reevaluation and things. That obviously could have happened within these years. But yet these other towns with a less of a mill rate are giving a greater increase to education than we are here. Net and current expenditures, this takes a look at what the state average is per pupil to educate. The state average being this year 18,791, and where Berlin is. Yes, we've gone up, but we're still far below the state average. Our wealth ranking is 65th. Our per pupil is 106 out of 169 towns. This takes a look at over time. If you go back to those first bars that I showed you here, where we're getting the 3%, and then you move forward here, you can see those first two squares in 2012, 2013, 14, we were very close to the state as far as the slope, the trajectory we're on. But as we've gotten those 1% and move on, the gap between the state average per pupil and where we are is much less. The gap is only widening. Federal funding, we received an email that our Title I, which is the third line down, could be cut in half for this year, our Title I grant. Our Title I grant is also a grant that we pay its entirety out for staff. Those are staffing positions that are funded out of grant. You can see Title II, that's for professional development. That grant has been decreasing. Title III is for ELL. So that just takes a look at where the state, where the federal funding is coming in, and the trend that's happened over the last 5 years. State funding. We have our adult ed. We offer an adult education program here at the high school. Our funding there has been relatively flat. That's based on number of individuals in town. The Perkins grant deals with career ed and business at the high school. Team mentor program is something from the state that's decreased. It's based on the number of beginning teachers throughout the state. Our choice entitlement grant, those are choice students that we have currently in the district. Currently we're funded, we have a little over 4%. I'll get to a slide on that. We're funded at $8,000 per student. And you might say, well, it's $18,000 to educate, so why are you only getting $8,000? We selectively can take students at different ages. So we look at to where we have room in the classes, where it's not going to cause an extra teacher to need to be hired, and then we would take a student at that grade level. The other part about choice, if students need special education services, we are reimbursed from Hartford. So Berlin does not incur the cost above the $8,000. We would incur the cost up to $8,000, everything above it, we'd get reimbursed for it. The Chef Choice Grant, that's a social and academic grant by the state. If you have the choice program, those funds are used to provide, they could be for staffing, they could be for services, and not just for choice students, for also students that reside in Berlin. And so you can look at the state grant. Open choice enrollment, it just takes a look at the number of students that we've had. You can see that in 18-19, we went to 4.6%. One of the reasons that we went to 4.6% is there's a new threshold at 4% or greater that you receive $8,000 versus $6,000 per student. And the reason to do it was that we needed some shortcomings. The shortcomings with the budget at 1%, we needed the additional funds to offset the budget. Not to say that's the only reason why we're taking choice students, that's surely not. We do believe that these students can be very successful as well as they add to the overall education of the school district. Presently, last year, we took students at K level. Next year, we're looking at K and 1 and a few siblings. Oftentimes, if we're taking a K student or a first grade student, we will allow the sibling to come if they're in a different grade level. We believe that taking a student at K is the best opportunity for a student to have 13 years within the Berlin Public Schools. Student enrollment is often a topic. Yes, student enrollment has dropped over the years. You can see at the elementary school, going back, there's a drop there from 1273 to 1173. So losing 100 students overall through elementary schools. McGee, 735 to 644. And the high school, 975 to 915. So that just gives you a relative, next year, we're relatively flat with anticipated enrollment. The first part of the budget document received, we have services, the Prada report, that predicts that we will stay relatively flat moving forward. Projected enrollment, I won't spend much time, but our class sizes, you'll see that we do keep our K and our primary grades. We like to keep the numbers below 20. Oftentimes, we can't do that, but we definitely like to keep them there. They're the numbers that have been present in Berlin for years, and we believe it's an important part of the education. Again, back to the stacked bar graph. I won't spend much time on it. I just think it's important that 1.74%, as I shared with you, the 5-year average, where that would be on the stacked bar graph, and where each of the items I spoke to tie into that. A school district's budget reflects the commitment of the community to invest in the future of our children. The erosion of funding for education challenges the sustainability of Berlin as a competitive school district with rich educational extracurricular opportunities for students. Being in the district here, this is my 27th year, the education provided here in Berlin is outstanding. What we're asking for is a budget that's competitive and relatively stable, as it is with other towns. And last year, having a 3.2% increase was definitely a move in the right direction compared to the 1% that we received in years prior. So, questions and comments?
Sam Lamaglio, 78 Hickory Hill Road, Berlin. I first want to thank Mr. Tenza for 2 years of service as president of the Board of Ed. 3 years, well, 2 years with the Board of Finance. When the Board of Finance first started, there was, people were a little nervous on how the Board of Finance and the Board of Ed was going to interact. And I think with the professionalism of Mr. Tenza, we developed a very positive working relationship. And I want to congratulate Mr. Rorian, and I total confidence that this positive working relationship is going to continue. I hope so. But I just had a few comments. As chairman of the Board of Finance, I know we have an excellent school system. I have two sons that graduated from Berlin, have excelled in the college level and in the professional level. My youngest is in grad school at Iona, majored in getting a BA, getting his master's in finance, and my other son is an accountant working for a major corporation out in Stanford. So I know we have an excellent school system. And I also felt that to have an excellent school system, I consider part of it our economics. If we don't have a very good school system, the way I look at it, then we're not going to encourage businesses and companies to move in town because they look to see if we have to relocate their employees. But as chairman, I took a lot of political hits from my own party for supporting the education. And I look at these certain groups in town that are writing letters to the citizens and that are not really informed, and they're complaining about teacher salaries. So I did some research, and I found out that our teacher salaries are really in the middle of the road on a state level. We don't pay them high like other people are saying, and we don't pay them low. But what people don't understand, to become a teacher, because I've been married to a teacher, and I have family members that are teachers, you need your master's. You've got 30 credits after your master's, and other things will advance your salary. But it takes 35 years to get to the top level of your salary, versus my son, who's an accountant, is making more than my wife, who's been teaching for 39 years. That's a fact. So when people are saying that we're paying high taxes because teacher salaries, that's a myth. So I want that to be understood. I also want to let people know when our kids are graduated from Berlin High and they go on to college, military, trade school, they excel. They excel because of our educational system in this town. But I also want people to remember, the public to remember what happened in 2001. 2001, we had a town government that was obsessed with lowering the mill rate. They lowered the mill rate. But in turn, what they did is not only they destroyed the educational system, but they also destroyed the town structure. There were programs being cut on the educational side. The prom was almost cut, I think, or parents paid for the prom. On the town side, we didn't buy trucks. We didn't pave roads. We didn't give the town garage enough money to buy product to fix their trucks. And it took, even today, it's been 20 years, we're still recovering from that. So that myth that our taxes are high because we've just been bonding and bonding, no, we had to bond some stuff to recover from our nightmare that we had in 2001. So I want people to understand that it's important not to go back with that 2001. It's also important not to fantasize that we're going to reduce our mill rate. I also want people to understand that the board, our structure, our financial position in town is very good right now. Since the Board of Finance has taken over the town, we've increased our fund balance to approximately $16 million. We're paying down debt. This year we paid down almost all our short-term debt with some of that surplus money that everyone's complaining that we have. We stabilized our liability for the pension liability. Now we have enough money in our fund balance to take care of all our pension liabilities and also have money left in our fund balance. So we're not going to touch the fund balance to offset our mill increases. That's not going to happen on the Board of Finance. But I also want to repeat the function, how this is going to work out, because there's some type of rumor or myth out there created by certain people. The Board of Education, you guys are going to vote on your budget, then you're going to submit it to the Board of Finance. You're not going to submit it to the council, you're going to submit it directly to the Board of Finance, and we're going to have a joint meeting between two boards, and that's when you submit the budget. Then the Board of Finance is going to analyze the budget, we're going to do our thing, and then we're going to pass it out to the council. And the council has 5 days. What the council's duties are, according to the charter, is they could reject, accept, and decrease the budget. Contrary to what the rumors out there that are created by certain people, the council cannot increase the budget. The council cannot move money from one line or another line. The council cannot take any money out of fund balance to offset the mill rate. This is the duties of the council. So I want people to understand. I know on your website, somebody told me that you guys says that when you guys vote on your budget, you're going to submit it directly to the council. You're going to submit it to the Board of Finance. Of course, the council's going to get a copy of your budget, but the Board of Finance is the only board that's going to either decrease or increase your budget. That's the power we have created by the charter. And also, at the last town council meeting, they were talking about a joint meeting with the Board of Finance. So what puzzles me is that certain members of the council are saying, well, we can't work on the budget, we can't work on the education budget, we can't work on the town budget because we don't know what the budget is. We only have 5 days. That's another myth. Whatever we do on the Board of Finance, the council gets a report. They get the same, they get the town budget, they get the Board of Education budget at the same time that the finance director sends it to them. So they are aware of what's going on. They could come to a meeting, they could come to a Board of Finance meeting. The interesting part is that no council member of either party ever came to a Board of Finance meeting. I don't know if they ever came to a Board of Education meeting. So they're not as informed as they say they're not, because they choose not to be informed. So I just want to let that go on, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Hey, Sam. Happy birthday.
Brenda Wall, 85 Fore Rod Road. In listening to the budget, we hear about the commitment of the community to invest in the future of the children, that the budget outlines opportunities offered by Berlin to all students. And we're here representing a group of parents that have a bit of disparity with that. We're representing the hockey players from Berlin High School. And as part of that, our players travel from the school to the rink 5 days a week, and as well as Saturday, but they're going straight from the school 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. It is the only sport at the high school that is 100% pay or played. There's no contribution currently included in the budget. And the out-of-pocket per player right now is about $2,000 per player that we're paying. So we're asking that the budget include that. And we know that the athletics department has included a bit of money for transportation that right now we're having to do because all of the parents are working, so we have to get the boys there by 3 o'clock every afternoon right now for their practices. You know, the athletes are representing our town. They're worth our investing. So we're just requesting that the current and future consideration are included in the budget going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else with a question for Mr. Beatty? Oh my God, I can't say your name. Sorry, Benigni. For Brian, yes. So, before we close this out, I was just made aware of the hockey situation before the meeting. We're going to be looking into things, but it's going to take a little bit of time. I want to gather some information, find out what we can about the whole thing. I don't know that it will actually impact what we're looking at on paper right here, right now for next year, but it's something that we can discuss as a board when we find out more information about it.
That's honestly all we're asking for, is that it's considered and included to be on par, so it is consistent for all students.
Thank you. I promise you we'll be looking into it. Okay. That's it. Thank you very much, everybody. This concludes the special meeting, and we'll be back in about 25 minutes for the regular Board of Education meeting tonight.
Move to adjourn.